Hi everyone. Today is January 26th. Welcome to Konveyor community meeting. We abide by Konveyor code of conduct, which means please be nice to one another. This meeting will be available in recorded and available on YouTube for later viewing. So I am going to paste the agenda link in the chat. Please feel free to add yourself to the agenda. Let's get this started. So first on the agenda is a demo by Sean. Whenever you're ready, take it away.
I'm on mute. My apologies, everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and we can get started. Um, so just a quick background on the demo. What I want to show is us actually able to, sorry, apparently it's a lot harder to share my screen than I thought. Um, what I wanted to show today was, and let me know if this needs to go. Is that good enough for folks to see? I'm assuming it's okay based on
Yeah, I
silence.
think so. Yeah, it works for me.
Okay, cool. Um, so what I wanted to show today was how we are able to now query Java projects to find method calls, both constructor and method calls from both inside the source code itself, but also dependencies when there are source available. We're not decompiling yet, but that's on the roadmap. But if the source is available, we're able to wait for the source to be downloaded and then able to do the query. So I already have the uh, container built, but if you wanted to test this out yourself, you just come here and you would create checkout main for the analyzer, build the wind up testing Docker file, and go ahead and run it, and you'll get the exact same output. So uh, all you would do is run the main. You got to pass it the new rules, and then go ahead and run that. And it's going to take a little bit of time. One, because it's compiling, and then two, once it's done compiling, like right now, because we're downloading the sources, Maven's going to take some time. This is still by far the long tail of what we're doing, but we're hoping like how Windup has solved the problem and tackle when you have a rewrite many, you can use that to store your Maven cache or things like this. Um, so the stuff that uh, you know already has been useful, I'm hoping that we can piggyback off that. Um, so because this is all in one rule too, it's taking a lot longer. It could be a lot quicker if we were to break up the conditions. While we're waiting for this to run, we can just go ahead and look at that rule. So we can go look at demo rules. So if you look at this guy, it's a rewrite, and it's doing all of these different calls. So it's looking for file reader, file writer, print stream, IO file. And this is actually taken from one of the OpenShift rules inside of Windup, specifically the local storage rule. And if folks want to take a look at that, I can get a link and add it. So as you can see, we're going to get a lot of output, a ton of output. And if we want to go ahead and look at this, we can go ahead and start here. And we can see that a lot of these are actually from inside the jar files. A lot of them are finding constructor calls inside of those particular ones. And so you're going to get a ton of violations because we're looking inside, all of these different ones that are actually messing with, input streams and things like this, but from like other stuff. But it's really nice to see us getting all of this information back, and being able to actually see all of that. So we can keep going down. It's a fairly long output, but it makes sense. We have a lot of rules that we're hitting and lots of jars to look through. One other thing to note is this is actually using the customer Tomcat legacy application. This is what, as far as I understand, most folks use for demoing and testing Tackle. If you want to use it, you can do it here. The big difference is that in here, I actually have set up a public repository for the demo config app, so you don't need to mess with Maven settings. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of the demo. If folks have any questions, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Maybe?
Sorry.
Sean, sorry, Dylan, you go.
I was interested in the link to learn more about the actual rule that you were mimicking. That's all I was curious about. It was really cool, though. Thank you.
Sean, do you see something afterwards where we have another layer of logic on top of the output that kind of like filters things to call out the most important pieces? Or I'm just wondering, because I kind of get the feeling like there's a lot of information. What do we do to make it so we can find out what's the most actionable?
So today, it appears to me, and hopefully Ramon can, yeah, thanks, Pranav. Hopefully Ramon can correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but Windup actually has like 4 different input settings. It's like the source code itself, and then it's like source code plus like corporate libraries, and then it's like source code plus like open source stuff. And I think it's like everything after that. So it would even look inside like your JRE and things like that. I could be wrong. Ramon, correct me if I'm incorrect, but that was my understanding. Right now, we're searching basically that third tier for everything. We can easily add filters then to filter that down after the fact. But getting all the information is harder than getting, yeah, right. Like searching across everything is going to be, the long tail, and then if you can filter it down after that, that makes it easier. So we can add scopes as we go on, but getting more information, I think is going to be, the quicker way to get this working. We can always filter stuff down after. So yeah.
Yeah, filtering things out, I think that should be left to the discretion of the user in the end. But having something that can introspect absolutely everything, I think that's the challenge, and that's what I think Sean achieved beautifully with this thing.
Cool.
In the end, I mean, if the results are too verbose, you can always tweak the analysis inputs, and that has been the paradigm and the approach that we had before with Windup. So I would dare to say that users are pretty used to this approach, and then we can add an additional layer and abstraction to make things more straightforward in the UI itself. But allowing the hardcore users to go as deep as they want on the CLI, I think it makes sense.
So that does it for my demo. I apologize if if I was supposed to have slides ready. Thanks, Pranav, for grabbing the screen and doing that.
Yeah, no worries. Just wanted to give folks an idea of what we are trying to show. So I think you covered most of the Java add-on features part. Did you want to mention that the searches work within dependencies?
Yeah, that was when you're looking inside those jar files. You can see that you get the deep link to actually go and show the code from inside that. That's a JDT, that URL scheme actually allows VS Code to go open all those files up. So we could use those in the future to actually go see those particular locations where things are happening.
Yeah.
And Sean, what about the syntax? I remember we were discussing things around using Mustache and for the templating and everything. Is that something that has been incorporated already, or?
Yeah, it wasn't incorporated into this particular demo. I didn't go through and add extra messaging inside that big message blob, but you can totally do that. Yep, it exists today. And
Okay.
if you actually look at some of the old examples, you can see some of those. So it would be, I think it's one of the palm.xml ones does that, as well as one of the language search, the Java lang ref one, I think, does that.
Okay.
I can get links to that for you though, if you would like.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have got some examples in the technology tagging stuff as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one question around analyzers, and maybe the SIG analyzers group will be a more adequate place to ask about this. But let me know if I'm in the wrong place. There is some wind up power user that is interested, is following up what we're doing with the new analyzers. And it looks like they kind of like the XML syntax and having XSDs and all that stuff. My guess is that we will still be backwards compatible somehow with what we had before, right?
I was going to let Fabian take it. So Fabian's been working on this. But effectively, yes, to an extent, and something we need to talk about further. But there's probably going to be a time when we want to cut off, right, backwards compatibility. We don't want to support it forever in the future as Windup makes changes. What we're trying to build is a shim that would allow you to convert from XML to YAML, and be able to run them in our format. If there's some use cases that we need to support when it comes to XML, it would be interesting to hear about that. But if it's if it's a preference of YAML versus XML, I think the world's pretty much moved on to YAML. I would
I agree with you, Sean.
stick with YAML.
Yeah, I would put a hard one in there that in the future we would not want to. We wouldn't want to be investing heavily in XML and XSD and all the older stuff. If there's like a shim compatibility or something, that could be cool. Just it feels like it would be a mistake if we were to abandon the YAML.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree, but there seems to be some romantics out there that are still in love with XSD, and the concept of having a schema seems to make things easier in some scenarios. It's not that I think we should be pushing for that, but I'm just curious about how much coverage will we have for that scenario.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question for around publishing schemas, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've added some initial Open API stuff, so we will have schemas published. It'll just be on Open API, which is like basically JSON YAML version of XSD. So if you wanted to verify schemas, you can use Open API to generate clients, do all sorts of other stuff. It's what Cube uses to publish all its APIs. So if the use case is publishing some sort of schema, I think that should be coverable in that. But we can talk more about it, make sure that we're covering all aspects of that use case, if that makes sense.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
As a follow-up. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I bet I was muted, but I definitely agree. I think probably in the core engine, we'd always want to keep it YAML, but we could probably, as a kind of like separate project, expose the YAML schemas over XML in the same kind of way that we're doing the wind-up shim, without having to support it like directly in the project.
Okay, because there's concern about the existing state of wind-up rules and what could happen with those, and I think this shame that you are commenting on should be more than enough. But yeah, there was this concern around, what can I do if I'm used to doing things and against a schema, that if you got that figured out, that kind of answers the question. So no need to stay on XML if a schema was the only thing that was keeping you from migrating towards YAML. Am I getting this right?
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Sean and the team analyzers? Cool. That was a cool demo, Sean. Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that was great, Sean.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
All right, moving on to the next one. It's going to be a demo by Pranav. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So yeah, this is all a part of demo B. So this was actually going to be a small demo, and our actual demo is going to be demo C. But we realized we ended up finishing a lot of stuff. So this actually became a bigger demo than we initially thought. Sean just demonstrated some of the Java add-on features folks worked on after our initial demo. I'll go and show some of the dependency analysis stuff that we worked on and the technology tagging rules. In dependency analysis, we added two providers, with one Golang, the second is Java. Both of these providers basically given an application, they return the list of. It's actually not a list. It's an hierarchical data structure that can potentially be converted into a full-blown graph of dependencies. But they basically return that data structure back. So I'll be demoing that, and then we also have the technology tagging stuff. I'll jump right into the demo. I think I have the tech tag stuff recorded first, so I'll start with that. On the right-hand side, I have the demo rules that I wrote for tagging. I'll just go ahead and start the recording. The demo. So if you look at line numbers 49 all the way through 72, you will see I have 4 different rules. The first rule is to tag an application as Golang application, and the condition, very simple condition, when you find a go.mod file in the source code, tag that as a Golang application. The second tag is the Kubernetes tag, and that depends on when the go.mod file or any file for that matter has a require on the KX library, then tag that as a Kubernetes application. Very simple. Again, this is just basically making use of existing conditions and then creating tags based on those. The third rule is tagging app as a Java app based on the existence of a pom.xml file. And the fourth rule, it's actually not tagging anything, but it's making a query to the tags that were generated prior to running this rule. So this rule is actually querying the in-memory data structure to get the tags that were generated. And this is, I think, Ramon, you were talking about templates. This makes use of the templates. If you see in the message field, I have tags, and then there's the mustache template for the discovered tags. So the value of the message would be filled dynamically based on what tags were discovered. And if you look at the condition, it's actually an OR condition between 2 different has tags conditions. So I'm looking for Golang and Kubernetes tags or the presence of a Java tag. So I'll just go ahead and continue running. All right, so I have these rules written in the demo. Nope, sorry. All right, the demo rules file. I'll just go and run the main file. And an output is generated. And if you can, all right, so if you can look at line numbers 151 through 168, we see a match for a rule with ID tech tag 001, which was the rule which queries the tags. So the violations are only generated when you query the tags. Tagging, to generate a tag, a violation is not created. Instead, that data is stored in memory right now. And in future, we want to integrate that with the hub so that we can send those tags back to hub. And when you actually query the tags, we would also query the hub DB to get existing tags for that application. So if you look at the message, it's actually templated out with the mustache template. So it says tags, Golang, and Kubernetes found. So that the templated info is passed on by the analyzers. All right, so now I'll move on and run the dependency stuff. So we have right now kept the dependency stuff in a separate directory. At some point, we'll definitely consolidate that. I just removed the stale output file. And if you, this is the main file, which is basically the driver for the dependency analysis. What we're doing is just looking at the pom.xml file of the application and getting the dependencies from the dependency analyzers. Yeah, so if we looked at the output, this is actually serialized output of the data structure that I talked about. So at first level, all the direct dependencies of the applications are present, and in the second level, for each of the direct dependency, we have the indirect dependencies flattened into a linked list. So you have at top level the direct dependencies, and as you traverse through the direct dependencies, you get the flattened list of indirect dependencies. Each dependency here has a name, a version, and a location component. I think there's one more field which is not present in the output right now. I forget what it is, but yeah. So this is basically running the Java dependency provider and getting output back for the given application. And again, right now, this output is dumped into a file. We definitely want to send this data back to the hub when we integrate. And a good thing about this is that you can have rich output in the UI for the dependencies, and you can distinguish between a direct and an indirect dependency. That's all I had. Any questions?
Yeah, Pranav, so this distinction between direct and transitive dependencies is amazing. Right. We didn't have that in Windup from what I know. One thing we did have in Windup, though, was the possibility of identifying dependencies. So when we were analyzing binaries, and we had embedded dependencies within the binaries, Windup was able to identify these dependencies by their hash and pinpoint their location in the Maven repository. Do we have any plans for these? Okay.
Yeah, we Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was supposed to be a POC for demo B, where we just wanted to show what we can achieve with analyzers. We definitely want to explore that. I don't think we have an issue open right now, but I'll go ahead and create an issue for that. Sean, did you already think about this?
No.
Sorry
No?
for that, guys.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's all good. It's better to catch it early than after, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll create the issue and we'll figure it out.
Right.
What concerns me is that, I mean, this, for example, this use case of the identifying dependencies by hash seems to be very related. I mean, it's completely coupled with Java. So I guess the analyzers will have to be generic enough in some concepts and very specific to and tied up to certain language with other concepts. I think we already discussed this, that you guys were designing something that allowed for that type of thing, because my guess is there will be a completely different thing that is only related to .NET that we will have to address in the future when working on .NET analyzers. I think you put together that type of abstraction layer, right?
Yeah, yeah. Each provider can define pretty much its own schema, and we're going to
Right.
have like a few kind of conventions to keep things relatively close when it makes sense to. But if you need to extend it or change it to match, your language, like Haskell and Java are going to have very different requirements.
Right.
So we didn't want to make anything strict. It's very flexible.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds amazing, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Super cool demo, Pranav. I have one ask, not a question. So
Mhm.
there have been like a lot of rules in the previous demo, in this demo, and I'm so glad that Sean and you explained each and all the important rules. I'm a
Mhm.
person who's gonna forget after like a month when I look at it, because I'm not working on this all the time. Is there a
Mhm.
way that we could add a description to some of the rules that are not intuitive? I saw there is a description field on the output, but in the rules, I didn't see anything like description. Is this something like we make or like we could add later? It's just to make it like some of the rules are like the last rule that he explained to me wasn't intuitive to me. So it would help
So
than pinging someone.
making the query to the tags.
Yeah, like a description telling that what it will do, or like how would I know what this rule is gonna do?
Yeah, I think we definitely want to document the rules. So why we have not done that so far? The main reason is right now we don't have a fixed schema for the rules. So I think the best we can do is somehow add comments or something to explain what the rule does. But if I think it's a little bit early to actually write documentation like a full blown how the how to write rules just like Windup has. But I th- uh, I'm I don't know, like do you, Fabian, Sean, did you guys have any better option? Uh, I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I
how we
think I think it's a really good question, Savitha, and I think actually
yeah.
goes back to Ramon's earlier question of the schemas. So one of the things that OpenAPI would hopefully provide us is the ability to generate documentation from OpenAPI. And that would be the documentation for each provider's rules as well as the built-in rules. So
Right.
the idea here is that it would be generatable from that OpenAPI spec. Now, we're not there yet, and I think it probably does make sense to go ahead and add some extra context to these rewritten rules. And as we're just like flying around willy-nilly with our rule format, we are trying to make
Yeah.
sure every demo stays stable. We have testing in place for that, but we don't have testing or we don't have any sort of like extra documentation around the written rules. If you could open up an issue on the repo, I'm sure that we would, one, it would be super helpful for us to remember. But then two, I
Yeah.
think it makes sense to go ahead and do that. Does that answer the question?
That sounds so cool. I was just looking for something on the lines of comment, or like, if I am, it's so interesting, and I don't always
Okay.
go and look at it at the same time. I mean, sometimes when I just come across, all of a sudden I want to like look at many things, and I don't want to bug all the time. Like, can you explain me what this is? That was my point. And I'm
Yeah.
not looking for full-fledged, blown documentation, or a comment is like perfect. And
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and add some documentation for the existing rules, and I'll like add a disclaimer on top that this is not a schema, and I'll just go ahead and explain what the existing rules do. I think I can do that.
thank you. I will create an issue, and kudos to the effort that you put on the demo, telling that you don't want to break it and you want to keep it stable. That means a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, and I shout out to Fabian and Sean for awesome work on getting so much stuff in demo B. I think we were not expecting to get all of this. Good work. Yeah, that's all I had.
Cool. Does anyone have any other question? All right, moving on to the next open discussion. It's from Ramon. Please take it away.
Regarding documentation, right?
Yes, the upstream documentation.
Okay, so just to provide a little bit more of context, as most of you know, we from some of the Konveyor projects before it was, the community was structured across different projects. We've been building downstream distributions of some of these projects. So, for example, for Tackle, we built migration toolkit for applications, and in the process of putting together a downstream distribution, there's also some effort done on the Red Hat side for documentation. One of the things that we've been discussing with our documentation team was the possibility of getting them to jump in and contribute documentation directly in upstream. But for that, they wanted to know or put in place some sort of communication flow to make sure that they will be addressing our needs as they appeared. The problem is that I was expecting someone from the Red Hat Docs team to join today, but it wasn't possible. So probably something to discuss on the next meeting instead. I just wanted to provide the headline is that the Red Hat documentation team wants to contribute documentation in upstream to make things way better than they are right now. But they want to put in place some communication flow for that. But there's no one from their team today on the call, so I guess something to discuss on the next one.
And Ramon, when you mentioned the communication flow, is that stuff where they want just kind of like be looped in as features are going forward, part of the process?
Exactly.
Okay.
Their idea is to get feedback about what is being done as early as possible, and even get involved in the enhancements themselves and document the documentation needs on the enhancements themselves. But this is something they want to discuss with the wider community, see how we could put together something that is practical for everyone.
Okay. And I'm kind of seeing like some of this could be a case that if we have a new feature landing upstream, maybe we could do something to tag like an alias for the docs or something. So we can create some kind of alias, probably tag them, and then vice versa. It would be a case that once they have the docs up, they can probably tag the developers and others who can get like review. And
yeah.
Okay.
So we've been on the past couple of weeks, we've been having some discussions, and we presented the enhancement model to this documentation team internally in Red Hat, and they loved it. But they were even suggesting making changes and adding additional sections within the document to again document these documentation needs.
Gotcha. Please loop me in. I don't know if enhancement is the right vehicle to kind of get them looped in. I think that may be something related, but I believe it's going to be more than that.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe on the next Conveyor community meeting, we will be able to have some representative from their side, and we can discuss that.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Ramon? All right, moving on to the next one from Ashok and Mahant. I saw Mahant join in. If you're there, take it away, Mahant.
Ashok is there as well.
Oh,
I
Ashok.
think.
Okay, cool.
Mahant,
Right.
do you want to
Yeah.
take it up?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So hi team. So that's regarding LFX mentorship and GSOC. They're two open source programs where we, I mean, just giving a primer. So where we basically put our problem statements, and if selected, we could actually invite students or working professionals to work on our projects in Conveyor. So the deadlines are quite near. So I just want to give a heads up there.
Thank you. So at this point, I believe we looked at this maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and we weren't sure if we would have bandwidth on engineering side to really dedicate what we thought would be the way to create like a good experience for Google Summer of Code. I don't know if anything has changed yet. I'm not aware of any change like for extra bandwidth on that. So that was the main reason why we didn't really go ahead to propose anything. Anyone have anything else they know about this or any other bandwidth I'm not aware of?
John, how do you know how this really works in the sense like it seems like two layered now, right? Like one is the layer where GSOC or LFX is the right interface to the students, and then we have CNCF coming in the middle, and then we have to mentor them, mentor the direct students. So how does this process work? Is it that once students see the list of projects in CNCF, they get to choose one of them, and then we have to do they take an issue and go away and do something, and we have to guide in the issues, or do we need a much closer loop on this?
So my understanding may be dated, but we had some exposure to this a few years ago, and what I saw happen was it was a much more involved process where before you go into this, you define essentially a problem statement. And then after you define the problem statement, you dedicate a certain number of hours every week to serve as a guided mentor. So this was more than just maybe look at a PR and review something and give a little bit of feedback. It would be a case of putting a significant amount of effort of first carving off a project that somebody would be able to handle on their own, and then also coming in with that mentorship angle of multiple hours every week to support them, help them grow. Certainly it's a great thing. It just comes at a pretty high cost on engineering resources, and then what can we afford? Do we have enough time for it? Where we are right now of ramping up so much on Konveyor and this new switch to the unified vision, getting a lot of things established on at least engineering resources I'm aware of, it didn't feel like something that we'd be able to support and then give a student a good experience.
Sure, John. So Mahant, we can look at it also from MotoCube side and see if there is some project that is separate and that we have enough time to work on. If so, we can see we can get back to the team and say these are the proposals. Otherwise, yeah, we can take a call based on that, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Does anyone have anything to add to that? All right, I will give you all 4 minutes back. See you all in a couple of weeks. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.